Queen Nzinga was born around the year 1583 in the Kingdom of Ndongo in what we now call Angola. It was a time of growing unrest in Central Africa. The Portuguese had landed on the Atlantic coast nearly a century earlier, in the late 1400s. By the early 1500s, they had carved out a stronghold in the region. At first, they came as traders and missionaries, but soon their mission changed. Their interest turned darker, towards human trafficking. The transatlantic slave trade was growing fast, and the Portuguese wanted control. Not just of goods, but of people, of entire supply routes that ran through the African interior. The Kingdom of Ndongo was a major power. Its people, the Mbundu, had their own systems of governance, of faith, and of commerce. The rulers of Ndongo were called Ngola, a royal title that would one day give its name to the nation of Angola. Nzinga was born into this royal bloodline. Her father, Ngola Kilawanji Kiasamba, was king of Ndongo at the time. He had long resisted the Portuguese. He refused to pay tribute. He struck Portuguese settlements. He protected his people from enslavement. Nzinga grew up in this world, a royal court shadowed by conflict, a place filled with tension and purpose. She was sharp, she was watchful, and she was bold. According to tradition, Nzinga was trained from a young age, not only in leadership and statecraft, but in warfare and diplomacy. She mastered languages, including Portuguese. She learned how to read a battlefield and a negotiation table. But she was still a woman in a kingdom where power passed through men. Her brother Mbandi was next in line. Nzinga would have to wait, and most of all, she would have to survive. By the early 1600s, the Portuguese had launched full-scale military campaigns against the Kingdom of Ndongo. They built stone fortresses, forged alliances with Ndongo's local enemies, and captured thousands of people to sell into slavery. Then in 1617, Nzinga's brother Mbandi became king after the death of their father. But his reign was marked by chaos, instability, fear. He ordered the execution of potential rivals, even Nzinga's own infant son. And all the while, the Portuguese kept advancing. Ndongo was crumbling. In 1622, with the kingdom on the verge of collapse, Mbandi made a desperate move. He sent Nzinga to Luanda to negotiate peace with the Portuguese. It was a critical moment. The colonizers believed they could force a surrender, but Nzinga surprised them all. In Luanda, she didn't flinch. She negotiated directly with the Portuguese governor, face to face. She demanded the release of captives and the recognition of Ndongo's sovereignty. To build trust, she made a bold political move, agreeing to convert to Christianity. She was baptized as Ana de Souza, named after the governor's wife. But what truly shook the room was what happened during the negotiation. When Nzinga entered the governor's hall, there was no chair for her, no seat for an equal. So she ordered her servant to kneel, and she sat on his back. She would not be made to look inferior. That single act became a symbol of defiance, a throne born of resistance. Nzinga's diplomacy bought her people a fragile peace, but it didn't last. The Portuguese broke their promises, and in 1624, King Mbandi died, possibly by suicide. Nzinga seized the throne, and from that day forward, she would lead not just as a queen, but as a warrior. When Nzinga took the throne of Ndongo, many in the royal court opposed her. A woman had never ruled the kingdom, but Nzinga didn't ask for permission. She seized power with force and declared herself Ngola, not queen, but king. She adopted the full mantle of male authority. In court, she wore men's clothing. At her side, a guard of women dressed as male warriors. These acts were more than symbolic. They were strategic. Nzinga needed to command, to lead her people in war. The Portuguese were quick to respond. They backed a rival claimant to the throne and launched fresh attacks on her kingdom. Her capital at Cabasa fell, her people taken, sold into slavery. Once again, Nzinga was forced to flee. But this time, she did not vanish. Instead, she turned east to the nearby kingdom of Matamba, a land once ruled by powerful women. And there she made her next move. She took Matamba by force, united its fractured clans, and built something new. A kingdom of resistance. A new base for war. From her new throne in Matamba, Nzinga opened a new chapter of war. She transformed the kingdom into a war machine, a web of fortresses, hidden supply trails, swift cavalry, and watchful spies. Then she forged an unlikely pact with the Imbangala, nomadic, fierce, masters of brutal combat. Yes, the Imbangala practiced slavery themselves, but Nzinga saw an ally she could not afford to lose. Throughout the 1630s and 1640s, her armies struck like lightning. Guerrilla raids on Portuguese forts, ambushes on marching columns, daring midnight rescues of the captives they called spoils. And when those captives escaped Portuguese chains, Nzinga welcomed them, gave them land, weapons, purpose. Matamba became two things at once: a sanctuary for the oppressed and a nightmare whispered in every Portuguese barracks. Nzinga's war had evolved, and the empire that hunted her now found itself hunted in return. In 1641, a new opportunity arrived. The Dutch West India Company captured Luanda, the Portuguese capital, as part of the global war between the Dutch and the Portuguese. Nzinga saw her chance, a chance to finally shatter Portuguese control once and for all. She quickly allied with the Dutch, offering her troops in exchange for weapons and support. With Dutch guns and European soldiers by her side, Nzinga launched a fresh wave of attacks, and this time she won. One of her greatest triumphs came in 1644 at the Battle of Angola. The Portuguese suffered a crushing defeat, but the alliance did not last. By 1648, the Dutch were driven out of Luanda, the Portuguese returned and reclaimed their capital. Nzinga had lost her strongest European partner. Still, she did not surrender. She fought on, because for Nzinga, resistance was not a moment, it was a way of life. By the 1650s, Nzinga was aging, but still in command. She shifted her focus from warfare to diplomacy and internal reform. She began negotiating peace with the Portuguese again. This time she held stronger cards. Matamba was a stable kingdom. The Portuguese were overextended, and after 30 years of war, both sides were tired. In 1657, Nzinga signed a peace treaty with Portugal. She agreed to halt raids and allow Christian missionaries into Matamba in exchange for Portuguese recognition of her rule. In her final years, she focused on rebuilding her kingdom. She encouraged agriculture, reopened trade routes, and appointed female generals and governors. Nzinga died in 1663 at the age of 80. Queen Nzinga left behind a remarkable legacy. She had resisted one of the most powerful colonial empires in the world, not just through force, but through strategy, diplomacy, and courage. She had ruled two kingdoms, led armies, negotiated with foreign powers, and defied every expectation placed on her as a woman. In Angola, she is remembered as a national heroine. Her name is taught in schools, statues stand in her honor, her story is told with pride. Across Africa and the diaspora, Nzinga symbolizes the strength of African resistance against slavery and colonialism, and the power of a woman who refused to be broken.